the best candidate wins this time around. So if you'll give a warm round of applause to Lisa.
So, good evening. Thank you for being here. My name is Lisa King, and I'm running for City Council District 2. Now, several people have admitted to me that they are confused as to when we became District 2, and so don't feel bad. This is not your fault. The City Council has to redistrict every 10 years, just like the Congress does. And they made some decisions that they wanted to try to keep Old Arlington in one district, and so the nature of the geography of Jacksonville, one district almost always has to cross the river, and it's us. So the new District 2 is basically everything north of Atlantic Boulevard between 295 and Kernan, and then it crosses the river at the Davis Point Bridge, and is basically everything east of North Main Street up to the Nassau County line and out to the ocean north of the river. So people are like, what? That makes no sense. The only thing that does make it make sense, and this is a total coincidence, is that our national park, the Tippecanoe Preserve, is entirely contained in District 2. So I tell all the other council candidates that I actually have all the best stuff, because I have the national park, I have our port, and I have amazing neighborhoods surrounding it. So I'm a native of Jacksonville. I actually grew up on the south side. And I have been a resident of what is now District 2 since 1998. My husband, John, and who's also my campaign manager, and I built our home on Heckscher Drive in 98. We're very fortunate. We live on the river there. And so an issue of great interest to us is the proposed harbor deepening, because it is literally our backyard. And if my stone crabs go away, somebody is going to be hearing about it. Because believe it or not, that is the amazing wildlife we have in this community, is that people don't realize that we have stone crabs. They know, they've seen the dolphins, they know we have manatees, but we have all kinds of wonderful wildlife in our river. And it's an amazing recreational resource, as well as an economic driver for our community. So, as Brian mentioned, I have been very involved in our community for decades. Most recently, I started a community emergency response team in my neighborhood because when we first moved to Heckscher Drive, we found out that the evacuation maps for Duval County in case of a hurricane didn't have Heckscher on it. So we took that to mean on your own. So where we live, we have a lot of very independent, very stubborn people who I know aren't going to even want to evacuate. We're supposed to evacuate if it rains hard. I mean, basically, the road can wash out at Heckscher Drive. So we organized this community emergency response team. We got 10 weeks of training, working with our firefighters. We actually are set up so that we can be engaged by our firefighters to assist them in case of mass disasters when they are stretched really, really thin. It was a great experience. I got a really strong new respect for our first responders. Even though I come from a law enforcement family, I had not had a lot of work other than professionally with firefighters. Additionally, where we live is right near the St. John's River Ferry. If you've never ridden the ferry, I'm talking to you new people from Minnesota, you need to go ride the ferry. It's awesome. It's one of the things that makes Jacksonville unique, where it's the only car ferry left in Florida. It connects to A1A. And a lot of people don't realize the negative economic impact that it would have to our city if the ferry was gone. Because it connects A1A, a lot of people who are driving down from the north like to drive A1A all the way down to their destination. I didn't really appreciate this until the organization of which I serve as vice president, the Friends of the St. John's River Ferry, started our Ferry Ambassador program. And what we do is, as volunteers, we take shifts on the weekends and we greet the people riding the ferry. And we basically give them I read the ferry stickers, and we answer their questions. They usually ask about where they should go to eat, what they should see. I didn't really appreciate that nearly half of the riders on the weekend are tourists from out of town. It was really something. And they're all riding, they're doing the whole A1A corridor. Now, if the ferry shut down, instead of coming off the ferry and going through Fernandina, coming off 95, going through Fernandina and heading south, they would skip us entirely and take JTV out, so to A1A in Ponte Vedra. That'd be a tremendous negative impact to Nassau County as well as all of our beaches communities. And it would just be a shame for the ferry to be gone. So about 3 years ago, one of my neighbors who served on the planning commission was turned out, and he recruited me to take his place. And I was tremendously honored by that because my neighbor is a Republican, I'm a Democrat, and you don't often see that kind of cross-party cooperation much anymore in our government. And I think, frankly, that's part of the reason why things don't work like they used to, is it's kind of devolved into a bunch of name-calling. And honestly, in local government, party labels are pretty meaningless. The issues aren't partisan. Potholes don't have a party. It's really about the ability to get things done and to work together. And as we all know, everything works better when we work together. So the Planning Commission deals with land use and zoning matters. And I really was honored at that opportunity. I'd done some real estate development professionally, so I knew land use and zoning issues. But, and I had been, as a neighborhood activist, I'd been on the other end of zoning fights as well, with neighboring properties that were, they were upzoning substantially. We had some concerns about when we first moved to Heckscher. So I was well suited because I had a foot in both worlds. And again, that ability to see problems from both sides and be able to come to a solution. I really got the opportunity to do that on the Planning Commission. And I've learned so very, very much. And that's really prepared me to serve you on your city council, because about half the job of a councilman is dealing with land use and zoning matters. Now, if you look at the district, especially the part north of the river, it's largely undeveloped, and it is going to be the big growth center of our city, both through the port and residential development. So you can see where my skills would be very useful to that part of the district. But the fact is, no matter where you live, things change. Money talks. And what y'all are dealing with here in Hidden Hills is a prime example of that. We don't live in a subdivision, but people who do live in subdivisions, one of the reasons that they do and put up with homeowners fees and other things, and people yelling at them about what they can put in their yards and that kind of thing, is to maintain your property values, to have some sense that the money you've put in is not going to be eroded by ridiculous things that properties happen to you, the changes that are made there are going to happen. So I can't imagine being in your shoes, particularly with some of your neighbors who have homes that they purposely bought so they could overlook a golf course. They said, guess what? Never mind, we're going to put condos there. You know, I just can't imagine having to deal with that kind of pressure. So it shows you, even in this part of the district, which is largely built out, things can change. And you need someone who understands land use and zoning and who is ready from day one to take your side and defend your property values. Because that's a significant, significant change. Now, I had heard about this through various sources. I've been endorsed by a lot of business organizations. One of them is the Northeast Florida Association of Realtors. And they contacted me about this issue because they were getting questions about it. So what I found out is, and here's the good news, is that he can't just unilaterally put condos in the golf course. He's going to have to go to the city to get permission. He's going to have to get a PUD to change. PUD stands for Planned Unit Development, and it's a zoning category. So he can't just do it without it getting approval. And it will go through the Planning Commission. And so here's the real good news. Even if I'm not elected, I'll be chairman of the Planning Commission. But then it has to go from there to Land Use and Zoning Committee of Council, and then from there to the full council. It is not unusual for new council people to get, this is very, very complicated. Even with somebody like me that had a real estate background, going into working on, serving on the Planning Commission, it is all acronyms and different sections of the zoning code, and it is real easy to get lost. It is real easy for someone to give you a line of baloney that sounds like it's a good deal, but it's really not. Oh, well, yeah, we're going to mitigate for that, and it's going to be fine. I will not be led down the primrose path. I can call it when I see it. I know what that looks like, and I can call it out. And that is what you need in your council person. It's more than just enough, it's more than just to say, I'm opposed to that, okay? It is someone who will understand what is being presented and can fight on many fronts. Because it's like a snake that you cut the head off and then you have to keep doing it. Once someone has decided, invested enough money to move forward with that kind of a development plan, they are not going to give up easily. And so you need somebody who is ready from the first day to take care of those problems.